Hello, and welcome to the Harvest of Creativity Festival. I am your host and ceremonial guide, Lisa Pranam. Today, we are going on a healing art journey with Shelley Klammer. She's a psychotherapist who supports creative women to heal unfinished emotional business from the past. She's also an educator with the International Expressive Arts Therapy Association. Shelley supports women to authentically self-express through spontaneous art and writing practices as a way to anchor self-safety, self-confidence, and self-love. I'm so honored and just full of joy and presence to welcome Shelley today. Hi, Shelley.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you for having me.
I am curious about this art therapy. A lot of people understand therapy and they go to, a therapist and have different processes. But what is an art therapist? Can you explain that to us a little bit?
Well, I'm actually a psychotherapist and an expressive arts educator. So it's a little bit different in that I do focus a lot on sort of the talking side. So a session with an art therapist might be a bit different than the shorter art exercises that I bring into my sessions. But I'm also an educator with the, as you said, Expressive Arts Therapy Association. And so for the past 15 years, I've been working online and designing practices to support people to heal emotional pain from the past. And I focus on writing and art, different art practices. But for the past 2 years, I have been designing what I call sort of future healing art exercises or visionary art exercises based more on neuroscience, the neuroscience of change, and really looking into what supports and anchors positive change, because I think we can get pretty locked into kind of endlessly processing the past. And there's some work to be done around bringing our visions into the future. So that's been my focus for the last 2 years.
That's beautiful. I love that term visionary, kind of creating the future from your imagination, right? Creating reality. I'm experiencing creativity in a kind of a wider definition. What would be your definition of creativity?
Well, I always think of creativity as sort of from a healing perspective, sort of healing the past and healing forward into the future. And so creativity for me is a very embodied practice. And so today I'm going to share what I call a visionary glue book practice, and then share an embodied way of relating to the visuals that I choose. I'll do a little demo for you later. But I come to creativity sort of from a pain point perspective in the beginning. That's where I came from. And as we all know, past pain has to be metabolized fully so that we can sort of create some room for our visionary practices. And I really started creating a lot of exercises around focusing on pain. And in particular, a really good way to find pain in the body is to see where we hurt, because that's where all of our past experiences are. So right now, a creative practice that I'm engaging in for the past couple of weeks or so, I've had quite a lot of lower back pain. And so I've been doing what I call an embodied writing practice. It's very similar to Julia Cameron's 3 written pages. And so why I call it an embodied practice is because I'm not writing on the computer, which is very left-brained. I'm really letting my heart and my body and my memories flow through my hand onto the page. And so for the past little while, I've been doing these 3 pages of writing where I start the writing with "I remember," and because I'm feeling body pain, I know that there's something in there that needs to be metabolized from the past. And so I'll start by saying, I remember, and just let the memories come up popcorn style. And I just write them down, all the random memories, and start to attend to those memories in a way that maybe I couldn't have in the past, didn't have the skills to or the capability. So, you know, yesterday when I was writing, I got this memory of myself going off to Girl Guide camp with my little uniform, my little hat, and it was a kind of painful memory about going away. And so how I related to that memory in a new way was I soothed that little girl inside and you know, said some nice things, maybe took a good look at the beliefs that she had at the time, because a lot of our pain is caused by sort of immaturely formed beliefs from the past. So that's how I sort of relate, as I sort of heal the past, and then vision the future, sort of clear out the pain from the past. And today, because I had such a good writing session last night, I'm perfectly poised to do a more visionary art practice.
What a sweet story. You were able to really lean into your practice to soothe your pain and your discomfort. So that's a great example. Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's so, you know, thematic in what we're diving into in this Harvest of Creativity Festival, right? This is the time of autumnal equinox. It's the time of harvesting and really receiving the fruits of our labor, the bounty of the season, and this cornucopia of everything that has come to fruition in our lives, you know, kind of physically and spiritually. And so I'm wondering, you know, in that, how do you experience you know, the practice of, like what you said, being able to release and being able to receive, right? This is kind of all parts of the healing practice. And
Yeah.
I'm wondering what you experience in this time of harvest, and also wondering how that relates to the expressive arts.
Yeah, well, I have a little play on words that I'm going to just show you how to do some image harvesting. It's a buzzword in the collage the collage world, and so we'll do some image harvesting in just a few minutes. But before we do the harvesting, I do want to share that. I want to give an example of, like, just as you said, this sort of clearing out of the old so that we can bring in the new, this releasing process. And in visionary art, because I'm so informed by this idea that we can sort of spiritualize over or kind of jump over our pain and start to create from a place of vision that might be I call it sort of idealizing the future from our wounded place. And so I think it's super important to do sort of any kind of a past clearing exercise. It doesn't have to take long, but some kind of if there's any discomfort in the body, some kind of a clearing exercise before doing the visionary art. And I had this exercise an example that I wanted to share of when I was a teenager. I've been doing these glue books. I just called them scrapbooks or collections years ago, but I've been doing these since I was a teenager. And when I was a teenager, I used to collect pictures of, I loved fashion magazines. And so I would pick all these pictures of women and teenagers with these just beautiful bodies. And I was a teen model at the time, and so there was this very heavy emphasis on outer perfectionism. And so I would say that I was idealizing myself or the future from a wound, in that, you know, my outer perfectionism eventually led to an eating disorder. And so I was sort of creating my glue books from this place of I'm not good enough yet. I'm not skinny enough yet. I'm not perfect enough yet. And so that's kind of a good example of how it would feel to create a visionary practice from a wound, right? And if I'd known better back then, if somebody had told me that I needed to do the self-love and the self-safety work, that would have helped my future vision be more clear. It wouldn't have been coming from the wound. So that's why I emphasize the past clearing and then the future visioning. It's very, very important that they go hand in hand.
That's a beautiful story, and once again representative of the healing process. I love that distinction between visioning and or kind of idealizing the future from a wounded self. I think that's a really important distinction. So yes. Thank you for that.
Yes, you're very welcome.
I'm also wondering about, when something comes to fruition, like when we open up to receive this harvest, it also is at the point of, it's full blossoming or fruiting, and whenever something comes to its fullness, then it is automatically in the cycle of energy, in the cycle of life, is starting to die back, right? It's at its peak. And yes. So it's this cycle going back into releasing what no longer serves us, and what has come to completion. So I'm just curious for you, how does this process that you facilitate help bring things back into, kind of the mystery, when something's come to complete, how do you experience letting go?
Yeah, I think it's very beautiful. I mean, I'm in the process of letting go right now. I have a beautiful downtown art studio, which is it's got all of my books, it's got all of my art supplies. And, when we were chatting, doing the pre-chat before we decided to connect for your festival, I was just saying, well, I'm in the process of moving my studio home. And so in a way, that in itself, it sort of came to a kind of a perfect pinnacle, and there wasn't anything better that I could have done in there. It was just gorgeous. And then for various reasons, I'm moving home now. So that is dissolving, shall we say. And so now I'm into the next sort of visioning and clearing practice, and so I'm doing all kinds of processes around losing that and around moving a home, and just having that sort of beautiful space that I'm going to, after we're done today, I'm going down there to start packing it up. So it's, it really actually feeds into my art process today, my visionary glue book. I don't know if it feels right for me to transition to my art table, but the story can continue there perfectly if you wouldn't mind.
That's wonderful. I love it that it's so embodied and so interactive, that exactly what you are experiencing in your life goes to the table, right? It goes into the practice, and it's all about that. So that's perfect. And, I was just thinking about, asking you, like, well, what do you do that's generative, that feeds a generative vision, as opposed to, this, some people say, like, well, the imagination can just promote anxiety, right? It's like our imagination can be used, in a very generative way, or in a very fear-producing, anxiety way.
Yes,
so I guess this is one of the practices. So I will let you share this this glue book practice, and I'm going to go get my supplies, and you can tell us what to have on hand. Hopefully the people watching will have a few materials on hand to join in. So
perfect. All right, I'm just going to switch my camera. Okay, Lisa. So you're back with your materials, and I am here at my art table, and I'm just going to share the materials. So what a glue book is it's not really a collage book. It's just a very simple practice of gluing things into a book that inspires you. So I don't know if you have a sketchbook or a piece of paper, or you can just pull an image, Lisa, if you want to. But what I have is just a blank sketchbook. It's actually magazine size. A fun thing to do for a glue book also is to use an old picture book, and that way you can keep some of the nice pictures, or you can you can you know, glue on top of the words. And so all the materials that it requires are a sketchbook, some magazines, some scissors, a glue stick, and I like an X-Acto knife for slicing out pictures, but you can just tear them out if you want to. So I'm just going to do a little flip through. So further on the studio theme, obviously I've been grieving my downtown studio, but there's many good reasons to move home, but thus I am very much grieving. And so I recently in a secondhand store found a whole bunch of magazines that are called Where Women Create, and they're filled with pictures of studios. So it just felt like such a good idea to create a glue book that is studio focused, because as of yet, I have not created my home studio. And so this is a book that I just started, and I love mood boards. I love vision boards, obviously. And so those were the first pictures. Create it. I'm going to start creating my new studio. And this is really helping with my grieving process. And so I'm sort of choosing page spreads that indicate, you know, home. I'm close to beauty. I'm close to good food. But then also I have all my art supplies at home, which is great because right now all my art supplies are downtown. And I have to, you know, go downtown to paint or create my collages and so on. So now I'll be able to create in the middle of the night if I want to. And so I'm getting all kinds of ideas for my new studio. Yeah, I love these red painted, you know, bulletin boards. And so more ideas for vision boards there. And so you just get the idea. It's very simple. It's not really a collage book at all. It's just maybe 1 or 2 pictures or 3 or 4 glued together on a page. And so for this process, just looking for words that inspire or something that anything that feels intriguing for you, asking yourself, you know, what do I long for? What do I wish I could be, have, or do? Those are the kinds of questions you would ask when creating a visionary glue book. So I was just going to share a little bit about image harvesting. So on the days when I don't feel like gluing, I just start to go through my magazines and I start just to collect different beautiful images. And so I love books and I'm looking forward to having all my books home. So I'll you know, be focusing on the good feelings of that. And, you know, there's just all these sort of images that give me kind of a beautiful feeling. This one really evoked a feeling of, oh, wow, I could paint day or night. You know, this was just kind of a darker picture of a canvas. And, you know, often I'm just off doing my therapy day downtown and getting a little creativity in where I can. And then I come home and I don't have access to my art supplies. So there's a picture that evokes writing. And so these are all sort of very exciting imagery that help me feel really good. So I thought we could just do a little bit of image harvesting, Lisa. I don't know if it feels good for you just to maybe pick, I don't know, 4 images out of a magazine. And so, you know, if you're, like say you're a cook, you might want to go through, if you're a chef, you might want to go through a food magazine and create a book of all the beautiful things you'd like to create. Or if you want to travel, you might focus your glue book on, you know, just different places you'd like to visit. So obviously I'm wanting to create a new studio. So this is what I'm visioning right now. And I'm going to be picking pictures that really, there's another mood board there. So I definitely want those all around my studio. So I'm going to slice it out with my X-Acto knife. And it's really that simple. So I'm just going to pick a few more images that spark me and help me to feel really wonderful. And then I'm going to glue them into my book. And I'm going to share a little meditation on how to anchor those good feelings. So really love this picture here, color. I'm just going to pick one more image. Do you have a couple images, Lisa? I really love pictures of lots of things on the wall. So there, so that's as simple as can be. And what I might do is, this is just such a short, simple creative practice, but I work full time as a psychotherapist. So just the act of choosing an image that feels really good and meditating on it, that's a very short practice that anybody can do. And so I'm just going to glue an image or two, cord out of here, into my book, and I will share a little bit of a meditation on how to anchor the experience that you can get from an image more deeply into your body and your brain. So on any given day, you would choose a different kind of an image based on your mood. I like to kind of go by color too. So that's sort of something, that sort of blackboard look, darker, kind of moodier, indicating maybe a different time of day than I normally would be at my studio. And that's it. That's the shortest creative practice that you'll ever do. But what comes afterwards is the meditation practice, which is very deep. So I'm just going to share a little bit about how you could start to meditate on these images. So I'm going to choose this spread here. And how I might go about this is based on a neuroscience exercise by neuroscientist Rick Hansen. And he is always sort of encouraging people to look for what feels good. So that's stage one. That's what we just did. We looked for what feels good. And so I'm particularly loving this spread here. And so the next stage would be to savor what feels good. So how you would savor an image and how you would anchor that good feeling in your brain would be to look at it and feel a good feeling for 30 seconds or more. So I might start to, in order to really enjoy this image, I might really start to look at the details and tell myself, I love these tender pink blossoms, and I might envision that candle being lit rather, and getting into a deep meditative space. I'm looking at these beautiful rocks that are painted with all these gorgeous details, and I might spend time imagining how enjoyable that would be to paint rocks in this way. So already I've spent 30 seconds anchoring the good into my body and my brain. And then if you really, really want to extend and anchor a good feeling in your body and your brain, you would spend 10 minutes or more with an image. So how I might do that is I might put on some meditative music. I would likely practice gratitude. I would sit in great appreciation for what I see here, kind of the cool colors, the tender pinks, the grays, the detail. And I would just let this sort of the free association flow as to what this image might mean for me. And I would most certainly include gratitude, because whenever we give thanks for something, we're practicing receiving. So I might just sit for 10 minutes in gratitude of this beautiful picture. And this is how I anchor beautiful feelings in my body. I acknowledge the beauty or the inspiration that I see. I take it into my heart, my body, my mind, and then I amplify gratitude as if this already belongs to me. So whatever these pictures represent in this book, when I amplify them with gratitude in some way, what they symbolize already belongs to me. So this is how we vision, this is how we take things into our body and brain, and this is how we change our neurocircuitry and also how we change our nervous system. So that's just a super, super simple practice, but you can see if you were to meditate on these images that feel very, very inspiring, and you were to extend how long you meditated upon them, then you can certainly start to understand how to anchor the good into your body and brain. So I am going to switch my camera back now. You ready to come back, Lisa?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. Okay, so I don't know if you had a chance to find some images or if you wanted to share what you found.
Sure. Yeah, I did. And it was fun because I didn't have a lot of magazines around. I usually keep a big stack for image harvesting. I love that term. And I didn't have any around. So I thought, well, I really want to do this. So I just grabbed what I could find, which was like a swimsuit catalog and a kids magazine.
Perfect.
And there were really limited images in there that spoke to me. But when I went through and just looked at even just the color or the shape, I could harvest kind of this feeling of what was resonating. And I was thinking about a big change that's coming up in my life and something I'm harvesting and also letting go of. And so I was just being with this change that's coming up in my life. And I put down just a few images. You could see them here. And one is these kind of two children and a cat, a black cat. That's funny. Now that I'm looking at it, it looks like two girls and a black cat, which is funny because I have two girls. We have black cats. And we're going to be moving. We're going to be moving our home soon. We're going to be selling our family home of 17 years. And so that's funny. I didn't even realize that until I'm sharing this with you. And so this image of them just being on this bird and just taking flight, and it's like an adventure, and these flowery pants that wanted to be in the bottom. So they somehow still have like room to move and to walk freely in this kind of these floral pants. And then there's these boots, and the boots are really anchored. They're really rooted on the earth. And so there's a grounded feeling. And so when you invited me to just, kind of be with the feeling that was coming through my body when I was looking at these images, I got that feeling. And then, spending more time, I can see how spending 10 minutes and really, really sinking into the gratitude will really amplify this noticing that I'm having in my body. Like I said, when I shared, I didn't even know what it was except for the feeling that I got when I saw the image. So that was really, really helpful. And it's so short. It's so instant. And I think maybe that is that part of the beauty of it, is that you kind of bypass the critic, you bypass the thinking brain, and you just really go into the the more subconscious levels? Is that part of the magic?
It is absolutely. And I love that you found those images from sort of limited seeming magazines, because I think that they're perfect for this next stage of your journey and to offer you this encouraging vision. And here it is right there in your home. You know, sometimes I'll say to people, well, you know, if you don't have any images, if it's hard to get them, you go to a secondhand store, go to the grocery store, buy a beautiful magazine, and look what you found, just something just so perfect right there in your home. So, and that's just it, choosing images that just spark a feeling of wonder or joy in this case, because it's a visionary practice. If it was more of a pain practice, you would look for maybe images that have a strong sort of, you know, emotional charge. But, you know, what you just did there was magical. And really, you actually created a kind of a collage in a sense, like a very, very simple collage. You just spontaneously put together a bunch of images, and there is the next sort of, you know, vision for your future right there. And so to spend some time with that collection of images that you just created will probably help you anchor into this new change. You know, it's pretty gorgeous what you just did there.
Thank you so much for leading us through that. And it's really simple and really accessible. I love the word anchoring. That feels really appropriate for these times, which seem to be more and more ever changing, and we step into the unknown every day. And so the anchoring is very helpful.
Yeah, and it's so helpful to anchor it visually. I think all of us here in this retreat are quite creative. And so to have something tangible and visual, it's harder to hold on to something in our mind. I mean, not that some of us don't have really super strong imagination, but to have a tangible image, a picture, which is the language of the right brain, the creative brain, of the emotional life, to really spend time with, and to, you know, receive into the body with lots and lots of gratitude. You know, that's the medicine right there. Simple, but so effective.
So for those who don't consider themselves creative or artistically inclined, you know, what would you offer to the audience today as far as this kind of broader definition of creativity, or what you just described, like the way to access the different parts of our brain that is innately creative?
Well, you know, I think it's really beautiful what you just did. I mean, obviously you're very creative. I see your art in the background. I see that you just whipped together this collage. And I chose this exercise with perhaps the people who would be coming to this retreat in mind, because, you know, it's not necessarily all visual artists that are going to be attending this retreat. So I think that just one picture anybody can do, you know. And I bring this kind of idea into my therapy sessions too, like especially for people who have a hard time. They might not necessarily consider themselves artistic, but I'll say, could you bring a couple of magazine pictures that feel emotionally strong to you? And that starts a conversation. So this is the very, very simplest form of creativity that I offer. And so sometimes we'll just say, well, how does that picture of that sunset and that eagle traveling down to the horizon, what does that do for you? How does that relate to your life? This is how you can look at one picture. One picture, you know, holds 1,000 words, as they say, right? So there's all kinds of free association. And as you meditate more deeply, just like I meditate on my memories, you know, they start to unfold and they start to flower. So does one picture. And anybody can do that. You know, just take a look at the picture. And I've done this in countless workshops too. And people who don't consider themselves creative have thoughts about what a picture means to them. It's just, there's no barriers there.
It's so accessible and so inviting.
Yeah.
It kind of takes the pressure off of having to, you know, produce something. I feel like we live in kind of a, you know, product oriented, obsessed culture and society in this modern day that, you know, we have to be good at creativity, just like we have to be good at everything, right? And the way we share ourselves needs to be really polished and you know, perfect. And it seems like that can really stifle the creativity and imagination and become, you know, this to get an antidote is to really come back to our creative freedom. So I love that you're inviting us to just even notice an image and see what comes up for us, because like you said, we can all do that. It's like creative problem solving, creative living is different than being a trained artist or you know, a professional musician or published author.
Exactly, exactly. These are imagination starters. And just as I was, demonstrating that, I was looking at the painted rocks, and then all of a sudden I imagined, well, what would it be like if I painted those rocks? And what would it be like if I lit that candle? How would I feel? These are just imagination starters. And so for people who say they don't get inner pictures, I get tons. I get images in my mind all the time, but a lot of people don't. And so some people are more auditory, some people are more kinesthetic, more in their bodies. So, it's just a way, it's just a door into the imagination, even if, very simply, you just imagined yourself, in my case, in one of these studios or in this scene or in front of this easel or what have you. It's just a great starter to start the visioning process. Very simple.
Hmm. And kind of going back to what you were talking about before around this, I don't know if you use the word spiritual bypass, but this idea of where we can kind of, get out of our bodies and go into the imagination or kind of skip step to get from, the pain that's in the present to, what we want and manifesting the future. Would you say that this anchoring process can help us? I mean, or how do we not skip the step of being with what is and going through?
Yeah. Well, if there's no resistance to the picture, then you can be pretty clear that it's going to come to be. But if there is, say, if I feel resistance when I look at, say, a beautiful studio, and there's something in me is like, oh no, I can't create that, I can't do that, then I'd probably take my current practice, which is take my pen to the page, and I would do, is there any memories around this resistance? Is there some reason why I feel? So there's that, again, that past clearing and then that future visioning. It's very much an oscillation practice in my experience. So if you're visioning into an image and it feels really clear and it feels really good, if you start to get sort of, some body pain or feeling like something's coming up, or there's a feeling of stuckness or resistance to the visioning process, then that's the sign to do some clearing of the past in whatever way is best for you.
So it really is an embodiment practice. So you're, recognizing that when there is a felt sensation, whatever that is, if it's a discomfort or something to really listen and then kind of go into that.
Yeah, for sure. If there's a block, then that's the cue to do some metabolization of the past. That's the cue. If there's any kind of body block, like I said, this sort of pain which is dissipating now, but in my lower back, it's just like, no, that's a cue. I have to sit with my journal, meditate, see what pops up. What is that? And then I made sure I did a good clearing last night before I was to meet with you today. And I felt very clear and able to do this visionary practice. Now, if something comes up, if I was to meditate on one of these images, I would go back to do the past healing process, whatever that might be for people. For me right now, it's the embodied writing.
Beautiful. That's, once again, so accessible and really following the wisdom of the body, and that, we know in our systems, in our current experience. So that's really, really just a wonderful practice. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I was going to ask you also, just, there's a lot of talk about this term of the new earth, and I'm wondering what your experience of that term is, and how these kinds of practices support us in really co-creating kind of a new earth, a new way of living together and living on this planet, and potentially in a more kind of holistic, meaning right and left brain balanced way. What is your experience of what we are possibly stepping into?
Well, we're talking about embodiment, aren't we? So that the spiritual bypassing, where you say you can go way, way, way up into your imagination, and spiritual people, empathic people, creative people can leave their body and sort of live in this very imaginative realm. But that said, it doesn't anchor these visions into the body, which they have to come into the body first, and then that's how they anchor into the new earth, I think. So there's an embodiment of these ideas, which involves clearing out whatever past blocks, past pain there is, and then there's room, there's space within to anchor these visionary experiences in the body, which is very, very important. And I think all creative people know that feeling of kind of not living in their body and spending a lot of time in the ethers and frolicking with the muses and all their imaginative sort of places and friends. But to bring them into the body is a really big task. I think it's the task of our lifetime. I really do. I think we're here to clear an enormous amount of material from the past, and I think that requires some kind of a daily creative practice so that we don't get accumulated just with the day-to-day, let alone the years and years, So the clearing practices are super essential, I think, to anchoring the new earth. And then once there's a clear space, then there's room for these higher visions to actually have a place in the body. Because when you think about, we store every difficult experience that we've ever had in our body until it's fully processed, until it's fully metabolized. You can imagine how much work it would be to have some room in there to clear that out.
Yeah, so it really is about staying current with ourselves and with the energy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Clearing so we can open our channel, keep our channels open so that we can receive, and once again, clear and staying current. Yeah, with the current of energy. Beautiful. Thank you so much. And you have a gift today to share with us?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. It's very related to this practice. This is a visionary glue book that I've shown you today, and my free gift is called Visionary Art Cards, and it's to help you to create an affirmation from your deeper mind. And so there's a 5-day intuitive, spontaneous art process, and it involves creating 5 visionary art cards. And then at the end of the 5 days, I invite you to choose one card and create sort of a very meaningful affirmation to repeat for 30 days. And so this is based on neuroscience and the repetition that's needed to create a deep change. And so it's really about resculpting your brain from past pain and into sort of more of a joyful future. And so again, if a block would come up in that 30 days as you're doing your affirmations, you just clear the block and keep going with the affirmation. Affirmations and these kinds of visionary art processes, they actually do bring up a lot of blocks a lot more quickly than they would normally come up, just because you're kind of pushing the envelope a little bit, saying, I want more, I want to create something better and more beautiful, and anything that is in resistance to that will come up to be seen. So again, the back and forth process. And so this is a course that focuses on the science of repetition and how that creates new neural pathways in the brain.
That sounds really good. Sounds really fun. And once again, very accessible. Yeah. So how else do we find out more about your work and what you're up to? I know you have a lot going on.
I do. I have a website called Expressive Art Workshops, which is kind of the portal to everything. And I have a big classroom. I've written over 30 e-courses on the art of emotional healing. And I also have a therapy website. So Expressive Art Workshops for the art and writing side of my business. And then ShelleyKlammer.com, which is the therapy side of my business.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Shelley. I really appreciate you joining us today on this festival in this really just extraordinary time to remind each other of our innate creative empowerment, this birthright that we are all creative beings, right? And you are so sweetly and generously gifting us with the opportunity to just work with what comes up with really simple practices, and it's just feels so accessible. And I'm still kind of surprised. I mean, I do this art medicine type work all the time for myself, and I'm still surprised of how touched I feel from just doing this this glue book exercise, and how I didn't even realize how deeply the images kind of touched me, and I get to go back and sit with that. So thank you so much, and look forward to seeing what's next and checking out your offering, your gift, and your courses, and doing some more intuitive arts practices with you. So,
oh, gorgeous. Thank you, Lisa. It's been such a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you so much to everyone participating in this little journey today. If you didn't have a chance to go through and pick out some images and do this, I invite you to, as you saw, it doesn't even take long. So I invite you to take a few minutes, 15, 20 minutes sometime in the next few days, and just try this practice on. And we would love to hear about what arises for you in this very simple glue book exercise. Well, thank you so much for joining us in the Harvest of Creativity Festival, and stay tuned for more embodiment practices, and we will see you soon. Thank you.
ExpressiveArtWorkshops.com